Good afternoon. We'll be into 3 parts today for the Sundays as well. And we'll start with Paul at Sky Sports.
Hi Frank. What are the chances that Mason Mount plays some part in the game against Liverpool at the weekend?
Got a chance. We all saw the image of the tackle afterwards made it look really bad, and but hopefully it's not so bad. We're trying to get him moving today, and it's one we're going to have to call. Well, I'll have to call later on, just before the game, with another 24 hours in the bank, etc. So we're trying, and the good thing with Mason is his attitude, which I keep going on about, is so good that he'd give everything to get out there and play for this club, particularly in a game of this size. So we'll have every opportunity and try to get him there.
Does that suggest there's no lasting sort of ligament damage or anything? Just to clear that up.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of swelling, and there was, it didn't look the best, but. I think some injuries with the ankle, from my experience as well, I'm not a doctor, but if there's proper damage, there's not much you can do, but sometimes if they're swollen and you strap it up old school and get out there, it can be done. So we won't take any risks with him individually, obviously, because there's a bigger picture, but as I say, we'll all do our best.
How much of a boost was it to have N'Golo Kante back training with the group, and also have you got an update on Antonio Rudiger?
Yeah, it's a boost with N'Golo. We all know the importance of him for the team, for any team he plays in, obviously, and the attributes that he brings. The question for me is how fit he is, because he's had a long time out now, since the back end of last season. I know he played a couple of games this year, but I wouldn't count them as such, because he missed the pre-season, to be honest. And what he did in Istanbul was miraculous, as opposed to the norm, to play how he did without training. So now we just have to manage him, similar to what I said with Mason. It's like the bigger picture, but great to have him back and around us.
You call it miraculous. How much will that performance from him in Istanbul be a factor in your decision for Sunday?
A factor amongst others, but I know I said it when I came here, I'm delighted to come and work with a player of his quality, so I'll factor it all in, and if he can bring us positive on the pitch because his fitness is good enough, etc. Now the injury is healing and he still feels it occasionally, then I'll take that into consideration.
You got great news this week with the confirmation that Callum Hudson-Odoi has signed and committed his long-term future to Chelsea. Just wonder, what role did you play in that? What did you say to help convince him to sign that contract?
Well, I spoke to Callum pre-season when we were away in Dublin, and pretty much as soon as I got the job, I sort of made contact with him to make him aware that I wanted to be part of the plans. I think it was a young lad who's come through the academy here. Club's worked hard with him. He's worked hard to get in the first team, or 1 foot in the first team. And for me, it just felt this, what everybody wanted. So then it was away from me slightly in terms of the club will deal with the contracts in itself. But I wanted to make it clear that I want him at the club. Because I believe in his talent. I also now the 5-year contract is signed, is when the hard work really starts for him. So it's he's got everything in front of him. We know the talent that he has. He's shown it on occasions in the first team when he's had his opportunity. But I think there's a lot more, and it's that pure hard work that will get him there.
Did he require much persuasion to sign on? Because there was a lot of talk that he was close to moving on or wanted to move on. Did it require much persuasion?
A lot of that talk was before me, to be fair, and a lot of that talk was from last season, so I only saw that from the outside. The only conversations I had were not persuasion. They were just talking about how I see it at the club, and hopefully Callum can look at the other players around him, the younger players, that again, their opportunities, which are not just handed on a plate, they're handed because they deserve them, because the players have worked so hard in pre-season. When you talk about Tammy and Mason and Fikayo, so there's a nice thing for him to see and hopefully be hungry for, and now it's signed and sealed, we can put that to bed and as I say, get to work.
Final one for me, the Premier League, EFL and the EFA have met Twitter today to have some talks about the abuse on social media. They've described it as quite constructive. I suppose, how welcoming is that just in general? Tammy Abraham's obviously been a victim of that. How welcoming is it to see progression there?
I don't know if that's progression. Only progression is only action. So maybe it's action to talk. But I think when you look at the social media platforms, the ball's in their court. People shouldn't be allowed to hide behind another name, another persona, another whatever, and say anything about anyone and the levels that we've been seeing recently. And that goes across the board, not just Tammy. There are lots and lots of things said about players, people in the spotlight, day in, day out. And I can't stand it. It's not right. So let's see what the action is from their end.
Moose.
Does the Super Cup final have any bearing on Sunday's game?
Well, for us, it will show us that we can compete with what are on form the best team in the country. I know it was earlier in the season. There are different things to take into account from that, but I thought we more than held ourselves in a good manner and could have won the game. From our opinion, should have won the game if we'd have taken our chances. But every game is a new thing. We'll have to be at our best, which was shown in phases this season, and other times we haven't. And against Liverpool, the one thing to be sure is if you aren't at your best for those 90 minutes, or if there's tough moments and you can't dig in, then now our team will punish you. So yeah, I think this game is now on its own. It's what's in front of us, playing up against the best team in the country at the moment.
Jurgen's been gushing in his praise about your young players. He rates them all at £60 million or more, and thinks that, like you, they've got their chance this year because they're good enough. But is that nice when one of the best managers in the world looks at what you're doing and who you're playing and is praiseworthy of them?
It's about the players or me?
No, you're playing.
So it's not me.
He likes you as well.
I don't mind. I don't need the praise. I just respect him hugely, and it was a nice thing for me going up against him in the Super Cup, because I've got huge respect. I love the way he's come into that club, his charisma, but not just that, professionally, how he went in there and has his way and doesn't mess about, and he's got quite rightly the success he deserves for how he works. So I'll take words from him as a fantastic and experienced coach about our players and what they're doing, and hopefully working in the right way, and be happy with that. Yeah. So that, if you talk about individual players, and that's great for them. And as I also keep saying every game that we talk, is that we must never accept that as that's praise. That's great, and now I can relax. They need to use that to get even better.
And finally, for me, is it the biggest test for Tammy up against Van Dijk and for Tomori up against whichever the front three for Liverpool he plays against on Sunday?
Well, if they play, yes.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, if they, yeah, but I know what you mean, because I think Van Dijk, clearly the performances he's put in this year, throwing him up in for all the awards individually, is quite right. He's an incredible player, and seemingly has every attribute needed to be a defender and more. So yeah, a test for our centre forward, and yeah, I mean Tomori, I think, has shown real quality and a real calmness about how he's arrived into the first team in the Premier League. What we must make sure is, as I sort of alluded to earlier, with Liverpool, you give them 1 second or half a second, and they're gone, and they can hurt you. So those are the things that all our defenders will have to be aware of.
Okay, last question, Martin.
Hi Frank. Jurgen did praise you actually as well, so
I feel all needy now.
you can blush at that as well. I was just going to ask about you. I've seen you around here for so many years, coming in, doing your work, going away again. What's life been like the last 3 months back at Cobham, back at Stamford Bridge?
Hard work. In the right way. I always expected that. I had hard work at Derby last year, and coming to Chelsea, it's a club that I obviously love and I feel at home, but it hasn't taken away the fact that I want to give everything to try and be a success here. So great to be around familiar faces, but it's been tough because I want success, and I think it only comes with one way, and I'm working towards that. So yeah, I've had some great moments where you see signs of improvement. You know, the Wolves game last week was something special for me to see. A really good team performance, but within that, the young lads that have come through the academy getting quite rightly praised for the way they performed. So those sort of moments are there. But yeah, I am one of those that I'm in the moment, and at the moment I'm working towards something. So I can't say I'm kicking back and enjoying it yet, albeit I'm very happy to be here.
I'm sure you will enjoy it.
Thanks.
Okay, cameras off please. We'll move on to the daily